Story time.
Hey everyone, this is Black Knight 657. I know I'm gonna sound like a broken record now, but I do apologize for the lack of content and everything, as my life has, gotten busy and with work and everything else. But obviously, it's for the benefit for myself and of course my family too. But of course, if I have the free time to make videos, then hey, here I am right now, which I have the free time. Anyways, so for this one, I was thinking and deciding to maybe talk about how I was a brony. Yes, I was a brony. And well, for those who don't know what a brony is, it's basically like a man or like a male who has a interest in the show or cartoon series or whatever the case may be of My Little Pony. Now, for me personally, I wasn't that or basically a brony until Generation 4, which, if I had to be honest, I think that's where a lot of people or like the fan base or like, men, boys in general and so forth. I think that's when we kind of all were like, I think starting or kind of like uprise. I'll try to find a word for that. I'm like, oh, was it like uprise or something? I don't know. But anyways, but yeah, I mean, My Little Pony has been around for years, decades, and so forth. I mean, like if you were like in the 80s or 90s and so forth, you would see those old cartoons of those ponies and everything, right? And of course, the target audience were girls, females and everything. And I never watched the show back then, but I do recall it back in the 90s. And I was like, oh yeah, it's for girls, ew, gross and everything. But again, though, it was like Generation 4. So My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, in which I think it appeared in 2010, if I recall right. So what, 14? Oh my god, that's 14 years ago. The time flies, right? Anyways, so yeah, so then it was back then. That's when it like arose, and everything. And then I guess like it was pretty much like one of those like shows. Like here, you know what? It's like this. You ever like were like a kid or even like a junior high school or high school, and you were watching a cartoon show, right? But even though the target audience is obviously for kids, and children and everything, it's just that the story, the characters were that good to where it can be watched by anyone, regardless of age. And pretty much that's how the show was. Obviously the show is not meant for everyone, just like every other media, content out there and so forth. But for me, it did grab my attention. Now, exactly how this all started. Well, like I said too, and if you kind of, I guess, like watch my stuff or hear what I'm saying this and that, you pretty much got the general idea that I'm into games, anime, or like animation, like that stuff. So like when I was a kid, always watched like those like Disney shows or Disney movies, the classics back then, like Lion King, Aladdin, like all that stuff, right? And then like as I got older, I still watched it because they had good stories, they had good characters and everything, even on TV too, like Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, and so on and so forth. So I was always into like that stuff, and I still am to this day. But where it's all really started with this series and everything, if I recall right too, I think it all started in 2014. So I wasn't into the show as soon as it aired. It was like a few years later that I was into it. Now I've heard about it, and of course, I was like, oh, this is for kids. This is for mainly girls, and there and so forth. Which, again, that's like the main target audience, and yeah, that's what it is, right? Anyways. So I wasn't really there, I wasn't like a day one person or even like a day two or like a first year, person. So I didn't get into it until I think it was in season 4. That's when I get started to watch it. But anyways, but what really got me into it though was actually a spin-off series, which was called Equestria Girls. And like I saw it and everything, and it was like the human version of like the ponies, right? The characters. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting take. And it wasn't until then that it really got my attention. Sorry about that. I had to kind of cut off my audio because my son came in the room because he's off of school today. But anyways, yeah. So back to what I was saying though, how I got into the show and everything, and it was from the spinoff of Equestria Girls. Now, I didn't watch the first one at first, but I watched the second one, where it was Rainbow Rocks, I believe, and that was like literally my first introduction of the My Little Pony series, or Friendship is Magic series, at least. So yeah, so I saw it and everything because yeah, it did pique my interest of the ponies in human version, and like that kind of caught my interest more than the actual ponies itself, you know, because again, this is like my first introduction of it, meaning that I wasn't really into it and I didn't really care for it, you know. So I figured like, okay, yeah, I'll give it a shot. So started watching the show and everything, and I will admit that I was, you know, a bit lost. And granted, I knew this was like a sequel to the first one, and yeah, it was a spinoff and everything, right? So of course, you know, there were some moments to where I'd be like, huh, or what? But I did pretty much got the gist of it. So like, you know, I was able to catch up, and I was like, okay, so this person is this person, and this person is that person, you know. So like, you know, little details I was missing, but overall, I pretty much understood what the plot was and like what was going on and everything. So after watching that, and yeah, it was pretty good, you know, and yeah, I did liked it. And then I was like, okay, maybe I should, you know, start watching the show to get more context. But it wasn't really like where I was like, okay, yeah, I should definitely watch it. I was like, no, you know, if I see it, then, you know, I give it a shot or wherever, so forth. So fast forward on that, and this is when I was with my second ex, and she had a daughter. And back then she was like 3 years old, I believe, or going on 4 and everything. But anyways, so yeah, so it was her. And then I remember one time she asked me to babysit her while she was at work or doing something. I was like, yeah, sure, that's fine. So I went to her house, you know, to watch her daughter and everything for like, I think it was like 3 hours or so forth. And she was telling me, or her daughter was telling me how she wanted to watch ponies. I was like, ponies? And of course, you know, she was able to talk, but not like, you know, talk like, you know, complete sentences because she was like 3 years old, right? And everything. So then she was like, you know, show me it, this and that. And I was like, oh, the My Little Pony, you know, thing. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. So then I turned on for her, and she actually wanted me to sit with her and watch it with, you know, with her. And because like my plan was to just turn on, and then, you know, I'll be like on my phone, or, you know, I have my like gaming stuff like you know, for me. So like while she watch TV, I'll be on that, you know. Anyway, so then I was like, okay, yeah, I'll join you. So I sat down with her and started watching the show, and, you know, started watching her from the first episode, because I mean, like, I assumed that she didn't really care like where she started, because it was just a show, right? So then started watching the first episode, right? And me and her got through the first episode, and then she wanted to watch more of it. So I'm like, okay. So then we got to the second episode, then the third, then the fourth, and on to the fifth, right? And then that's when I will say it started to catch my interest more and more. And this is the funny part right here. I think we got up to the 6th episode, to the point to where I started to notice that I was the only one watching it. Because like I was watching the show, and then I realized that she wasn't like next to me. I mean, like I mean, of course she was still close by, you know, but she wasn't sitting next to me anymore. Instead, like she was like off, like, you know, on the other side of the room playing with her toys or something. And then it was basically just me watching it. So then I was like, okay. So then I started watching it more up to like the 7th or 8th episode, right? And then that's when my ex came back from, like, you know, what she was doing. And then I told her, like, oh yeah, like, you know, she was good. We had fun together. We're watching the show. She's like, okay, cool. And then right there, I was like, you know what? Okay, I think I am just gonna, like, you know, continue watching the show, or at least finish up the first season and see how it is. So then that's when, you know, I went back home. And oh yes, right. I watched this on Netflix too. So and I had Netflix, and I think on Netflix around this time they only, let's see, it was 2014, right? So yeah, so on Netflix, I think around that time they only had like the first like 3 seasons, if not 4, I believe. If not, I think it was 3. Yeah, and yes, I binge watched the show. I've been watching the show up to as far as I can, and then that's when I started to watch the other episodes, like, you know, when they were like on TV, or like, you know, if I could find something else, right? So then once I caught up with that, then I started watching it on a regular basis. And I think around this time, I know this for sure. I think like in the first like year or two, it was on the channel called The Hub. Yeah, it was called The Hub, or something like that, right? For like kids and everything. However, then it transferred to Discovery Family, you know? And if I recall right, I think that there's some kind of like company, corporation, kind of like, you know, properties or selling, or I think Discovery Bot Hub. I don't know. Anyways, so that happened, right? So then that's when I started watching the show more, and that's when I started keeping up with the episodes, And I guess you could say I was pretty much like hooked on it. So yeah. So that was how it started, and then so on and so forth. So then yeah, I started watching the show, and then of course I did watch the first Equestria Girls, and then I kept watching more of the Equestria Girls when like the third one came out, and then like the shorts came out, and like the episodes came out, and like all that stuff, right? And of course I kept up with the show too, watching like season 4, 5, 6, 7, so on and so forth. And yeah, I mean, like for me, it was just like it wasn't obviously not like I guess capturing my interest, right? It wasn't because they're ponies, obviously, that stuff. So like that stuff wasn't like, getting to me, but it was just mainly about the characters. It was like the stories, and to be honest, I did appreciate the first like few seasons where like they truly were trying to show lessons. They really were trying to, I guess, like have like that moment of saying like, hey, people do, mess up. We do say sorry. We forgive. Friends do this. Friends do that. It pretty much had like a lesson every single episode about friendship. And just like caring for others and all that stuff, which I thought that was pretty cool. For kids to like learn about this stuff. And then like as the seasons went on, it like ventured away from that because I mean, to be honest, how much more can you talk about friendship, right? But I mean the elements were still there, right? Like all that stuff was still in the show, obviously. But then like towards the future seasons, they started to have more of a bigger plot. They started to have more conflicts. They started to have actual like enemies and this and that, blah blah, all that stuff, right? So the show became more complex and and piqued my interest more. Now I know that within the community there was like I guess you could say like debates and kind of complaints about saying, oh, they kind of venture off to where they first started, which hey, I get that because I've had shows where I watched to where it started off like this and then came down like this, and sometimes it does depend on how it works, but for this it worked, or at least in my opinion. But again, they still had those same elements, the same characters and everything, but everything just like grew together with it, if that makes sense or not. But yeah, so that's how the show was going. And during this time, while the show was ongoing, and I was still with my second ex too and everything. And then that's when I told her, that I started watching the show and that I started to like it. And then this also around the time to where, I started actually buying merchandise. Now, I wasn't buying the toys, okay? No. I wasn't like that person to buy toys or kind of collectibles, you could say, or whatever, unless I really, really, really liked the stuff. And also, it was more sort of like the anime stuff, right? But instead, what I did get were like the plushies, But I mainly got the plushie dolls from Build-A-Bear because they're the ones also selling those too in like good quality and everything. So if I recall right, I think each one that I got was like $20 to $30, something like that, depending on who it was and all that stuff, right? But I went there, I got the doll, and of course I did not play with the doll. Okay, I did not put that right there, but I did collect them though. So basically I would go to the store, collect the doll, and then I would just, place them on like a shelf or, somewhere to where I had a collection. Like, I literally did have a collection. I think, if I recall right, oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember how many did I get? I don't know. If anything, I think it was like 10 or whatever. Basically, I had like most of the dolls that they were selling. I think I had like almost all of them and just missing like maybe like 1 or 2, right? So it was like that. And then, of course, I also had the shirts too, and I'll say buying shirts. And like I remember I wore the shirts too, and I actually wore them in public because like I didn't really care. Now here, like I was always into games, anime, cartoons, and all that stuff, right? Like I said before. So like for me, of course, I wore like that stuff. So I always had shirts. I mean, even now, I still have shirts of like all that stuff, because to me, that's, expressing my interest and say, hey, I'm like, into stuff, and I think it's cool. So I felt the same way about the My Little Pony stuff, and my shirts were just like, obviously, men's shirts where they have the characters and everything. But I remember also shopping for like, online shirts too, where they look more cool. They have like cool designs, and I had like a few of those too, and yeah, they're pretty cool. Like I remember like I had this one shirt of like Twilight and like I think like Nightmare Moon, to where like they had like the silhouettes of them, but had like a really cool design, So it was like that stuff. But anyway, so yeah, so I had the shirts, I had the plushies, and I think that was it for like the merchandise part, because I don't want to get like too much involved into it, I guess. But if anything too, I even actually cosplayed as well into one of the characters. Now for me, for me, I always went to like the anime conventions back in like Chicago area, like O'Hare, because that's where I lived, and everything for obviously most of my life, or majority of my life. But I didn't really start going until like 2011, and then currently I do try to still go there when I can though, but obviously I haven't been there much and everything. But anyways, but yeah, so I went there like every year and everything, and I wasn't really much of a cosplay person, I mean, if anything, yeah, I thought about it, and then I remember one time I actually wanted to cosplay as a Black Rock Shooter, something like the male version of her. And basically, they actually did had a male version of the outfit, to where it was just like the pants, the boots, and the jacket, and that was it. And of course, you could be shirtless under that jacket. Now, I didn't do it though, because I mean, like back then I wasn't in better shape, and yeah, and well, recently I lost weight and everything. But anyway, so back then though I was in more better shape. However, I didn't cosplay her or as that, because I wanted to make sure that I was more slimmer, as well as have like abs or like some kind of definition, what I'm talking about. Anyways, so yeah, so I wasn't really much of a person to cosplay, but this one I actually did, and I cosplayed as my favorite side character, which was Vinyl Scratch, aka DJ Pawn 3. And here, if I can find the pictures of myself, whatever, I'll show it on this video. And if I do, here it is. If not, then okay, yeah, I can find it. Anyways, but yeah, so I did cosplay as that, and yeah, it was pretty cool. And they had gatherings at the conventions for for My Little Pony, and of course I saw other people also cosplaying too, and we took pictures and videos. And I remember I was actually part of like the lineup, to where like in the convention they had like a group photo and everything, so they have everybody together to take a picture, right? And then they'll have volunteers. If not, like they'll have like selections of people who I guess like look the part best, and they will go up there, take a picture. They can like when you do something or whatever, right? And I remember that I was like one of those people, so I went up there, took pictures, and I was like acting like I was playing music and everything. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Anyways, but yeah, now I guess like as for people who knew I was into this, like my family and friends, right? And I will say this though, I didn't really have much of a problem. Basically, like here, everybody knew I was like into like kind of like that stuff, right? But when it came to this or whatever, no one really gave me a hard time. So like basically like no one bullied me for it, or no one like questioned me hard about it. No one thought I was, I guess, gay, or something. If anything though, my parents did question a little bit, because they knew that the show was mainly meant for girls, And they're like, "You're into this stuff, like you sure about this?" I was like, "Oh yeah, this and that." And they're like, "All right," and pretty much that was it. And my sisters and my cousins or whatever, I mean, they didn't care at all, because what they knew, who I was in there and so forth. They knew I was like all into that stuff, and they were totally okay with it. Actually, funny enough, one of my cousins actually got into it thanks to me too. So I mean, like, I guess she was also kind of like a Brony person a bit and everything. But anyways. So yeah, so it's pretty cool. And even with my ex-girlfriend too, she was supportive of it as well. Back then, yeah, she was supportive with all my hobbies too. She actually encouraged me to cosplay and like, hey, look at this and this and that, so forth. And I actually got her into anime too a little bit too. So it's pretty cool. Back then. But anyways, yeah, and what else about it? Oh yeah, and of course there was the community, and if I recall back then, or at least for the most part from my point of view, right? It was pretty fun, it was pretty good, and everybody was having fun, talking about it, sharing their interest in everything. Of course, you had like fan fiction, like all stuff, right? But if anything, I remember watching I'll go on YouTube, right, and like watching like people like express their feelings about it and their interest in everything, right? And I do recall a kind of like a YouTube series called Bronies React, which, if I recall right, it was by AC Racebest or something like that. I'm sorry if I butchered that name, but I think that's exactly how his name is on YouTube. But anyways, but he had like a series, right? And if I recall right, I think the first one was at season 4 or towards the end of it. If not, it was like 3. And then that's when they started to make videos on the first episode of the season, and then the last episode of the season. And sometimes they'll do videos of like special episodes, like one where they had Celestia and her sister. Oh my god, did I just forgot her name? Wait, hold on a second. Celestia and oh my god, I am going to blank. No. Hold on a second. Because I'm sorry, I'm looking it up right now, because there is no way that I am forgetting her name. I know it's not Nightmare Moon because that's her. Luna. Okay, that was embarrassing. This has told you like how I said I'm a former Brony. Okay. Oh my god, Luna. That's what her name was. Why could I not remember her name? I remember Celestia, Luna, and Cadence. I remember Cadence for God's sakes. Anyways, about was all same. Anyway, so then they would do certain episodes where like one episode was Celestia and Luna will switch their cutie marks, right? And so they'll like do a reaction on that one, and then they had a reaction where Applejack's parents, how they got together and everything, and they also did reactions of the Equestria girls, not all of them, but just like the movies, but they didn't do like the shorts and everything, which I thought they probably should have maybe get more views or reactions out of it. But anyways, so that was fun, and to be honest, to this day I can actually still go back to it and watch it and still actually enjoy it, because it's like nostalgia, you could say, and also because it is entertaining to watch as well too, but so that's pretty much like how it was back then and so forth. So I had like some of the merchandise, the show what was good, and the community was pretty good too, but then of course usually as things start, then things have an ending, right? So then towards the end of the series, or at least that season, because my opponent's still going, obviously, but just not that. But towards the end of Gen 4, if I recall right, I think they ended in 2019, if I'm correct, because they had 9 seasons, right? So then in 2019, that's when the series ended, and to be honest, in my opinion, I think it like ended on a good note, like from start to finish, and how it kind of all tied together. However, if anything, I will say that, of course, like it felt a little bit rushed towards the end of like the epilogue stuff, because, well, when I say that, I mean like I would love to see maybe if they had like a episode or two, like one like here, if they had like maybe a 3 episode kind of thing, or like a 3-part thing where we see them grow up and how they came to be and all that stuff, right? Because towards the last episode, you see Twilight become the princess, obviously, in her fully grown, alicorn form, and then you have like the characters, excuse me, you have the characters, grown up, living their lives and this and that and so forth. However, there are some moments to where it's like something happened, and you're like, wait, how did that happen? It's like, wait, so are they together? Wait, this happened? It's like that stuff. So that part I would love to see. Now, here's the thing too. I will say this part right here is that the only kind of content that I got out of it was just the show itself, So no, I didn't look at the comics, or no, I didn't look at anything else, so forth. Which they do have comics for it, and I have heard that they're pretty good. And maybe I'll take a look at it, in the future maybe. Or back then I did have interest. I just didn't know, where to go exactly, I guess you could say. But anyway, so basically I'm saying though is that maybe they have some context outside of the show. And if they do, then hey, I'm for it, and then I would love to look into it. But But anyway, so yeah, so towards the end of the series, yeah, I thought it was pretty good and everything. And then of course, everybody, had their own reactions and like say so and opinions about the show and saying how it's all cool and everything. And I think like around this time too, there was one question, where like in the Brony community and everything, where it said like, okay, now that Gen 4 is over, and of course we were getting more information about Generation 5 and all that stuff, right? So then everybody was trying to figure out if Generation 5 was going to be like a continuation, like in the future or in the same world, or was it going to be like a reboot, or was it going to be something else, right? And of course, the biggest question of all is saying like, is it going to be just as good or not? Which, every other show that has that, we always have that question. Is it going to be as good? It's going to be worse? It's going to be bad? We don't know until that show actually comes around, But if anything, for me personally, I didn't had any interest in Gen 5 at all. And I guess because like they went from 2D, right, to like 3D animation, which is totally fine, and that's normal nowadays and everything. But again, too, it just didn't really, capture my interest. And in the future, years later, excuse me, I just burped. Anyways, but in the future though, they did had a movie, which is basically kind of like the introduction to Gen 5, and it was on Netflix. And I forgot when it came out exactly, but I think it was like 2021 or 2022, something like that. But anyways, so they had the movie come out, and for the most part, it wasn't bad. It was like decent, to me at least, whatever and so forth. But it didn't capture me to say like, okay, I'm in. Let's find out more about this. For me, I saw it as just like the movie, the introduction, and then that was it. So it didn't capture my interest, and I had no interest in watching the show at all. However, I did try to watch like the first few episodes of it, and I was like, I don't know. But I guess that's where like that's when I really stopped being a brony. Now I say that though, but of course there are some people that say like it's like what, once a brony always a brony kind of thing, or like I remember that quote from my Power Rangers: once a Ranger, always a Ranger, right? And do I believe that? I think so a little bit, because here's the thing. Even though I say, I'm a former brony, which I basically am, and yeah, I would consider myself as a former one. The thing is, though, is that like for me, I can still go back and watch the show again, and still enjoy myself. I can still go back and watch the reactions. I can still go back and watch, Equestria girls and everything. And I know I can say that for every other show or anime that I've seen in my life, but like it's like that to where I can do that and still be like, yeah, this is a good show, and have like that nostalgic feeling and be like, yeah, I remember back then how this was and all that stuff, right? But yeah, so but as of right now, yeah, I just have no interest in the current generation of it. I have no interest into buying actually any more stuff, even back then, and I say that too because towards the end, I guess, of my brony journey, you could say, that's when I started to sell my plushies. That's when I started to sell my like stuff. Well, because like around the time too, we were like moving, and everything from Illinois to currently here, and everything. But like that was when I also had the or like I made the decision to be like, okay, should I keep this up, or should I just kind of stop? And I made the choice to like, I guess, stop. Now I'm not saying now again, I'm not saying like I'm stop and just trying to stop and watch the show or whatever, but that was kind of like where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stop buying this stuff and just like I guess like retire or something like that. I don't know. It's kind of the same thing with I guess like with my Yu-Gi-Oh career or journey too, where like I'm still into Yu-Gi-Oh, but I just stopped playing that years ago or so forth. Which maybe I'll make a video on that too. On my opinion on like that game and everything. Anyways, so but that stuff, yeah. So like it was around what 2021. Was 2021? Yeah, that's when we had moved and everything. So it was like on that year to where I just finally just decided to, I guess, like stop being a brony, or just like to stop being interested in everything, because I mean it is what it is, and everything. Now of course, I'm gonna hold on to all the memories. Of course, I'm gonna like recall all the good things that of like of what it was, and other people who I interacted with, and just all that stuff. Just like every other good thing out there. Now, even though there's a lot of good things out there about it, I do want to point this out as well, talking about this and everything, that just like every other community out there, they also, had this bad side and dark side, all that stuff, right? So I do briefly kind of want to mention that too about it, because I believe that it was an issue, I guess, before, and that it still kind of has to be brought up. And I say this too, out of careness, I guess you could say, because like, and here's the too, I'm still within like the anime community and like the gaming community and all stuff too as well. Now I don't interact with people as much as before, because I got my own life, now and everything, and it is what it is. But I do also like to address like the issues of the community and this and that, so forth. And there actually was going to be another video that I might make too. It's talking about like the dark side of like being a weeb, right? Anyways, but back to this thing, right? I will say that even though the community, I will say majority of it was good. The bad side of it is that you have people who are just so obsessed with the show, or like that was like their whole lives, about it, to where they spent all their money on the merchandise, they spent all the money and time and energy on the stuff, Now, granted, if you actually make like a career out of it, or basically, if you're a content creator, right, and that was like your thing, and that's what brought you the money and like business and so forth, then I totally understand that, And of course, if you did it out of passion too, so that's good, right? But it's one thing when it's like that, and that's another thing to where you're just a person or whatever, right? And you're just constantly putting all your resources on that, when you are prioritizing that more than your responsibilities, whether that's, your job, your bills, your family, or your health, overall. It's just, nah. I'm not for that at all. And again, I'm not just saying this, in the Brony community. I'm saying this also in general speaking too, which again, I'll probably talk about that more in, the future maybe. But there was that, but also too, if I recall right too, in the community, people had like allegations like as well of, of having, certain interests that isn't good, okay, towards certain people, smaller people, I'll say that, okay, and nothing more. It basically put two together on that, So there was that, and of course, people were kind of going at each other, and even with theories too, I mean, man, speaking of theories, it's just like people have their own theories and opinions about everything, but dang, they're just opinions, man. Like what people think this, people think that. Yeah, I get it. We may not agree on some things, but it's not like the end of the world, So basically, it was like that of having their own opinions and people liking certain people, and then you have also people who try to make like it's like their fanfics or their opinions, and try to say no, this is canon, no, this is actual thing. People just jumping into to conclusions or making assumptions, and it's just ridiculous. It really is. Like, I don't know. Like for me, I always believe this, and not just in this community or the My Opponent stuff, but just in general too. Speaking when it comes to like anime or animation or anything, right? Is that like, until the creator actually says what it is, then it's not what it is, So basically, it's like this: if the creator says that, oh, this person is married to so and so, then hey, that's what it is. Now, if someone doesn't agree with that, that's fine. But it comes to the point to where it says like, oh, I don't agree with that, and that's not facts. You can't say this, but like, it's just like, how the heck are you gonna argue to the creator? The person who made this, the person who developed all these characters, this world in there and so forth. How the heck are you gonna argue with them when they're the ones themselves who made this? Now, granted, there's one thing, and it's kind of maybe thought of Akira Toriyama, and rest in peace, the person who created Dragon Ball, right, and everything. But I remember him years ago that when they brought up Super Saiyan 3, he did say that was going to be Super Saiyan 2, but he's like, oh wait, I forgot, we already made that. So granted, mishaps happen, right? Anyways, but that's just like one session. But overall, though, yeah, it's just really stupid. And I mean, what I can go, on and go into deep dive about, like the problems and issues. But like I said too, what I'm saying isn't just within the Brony community. I mean, yeah, that stuff happened, but it also happens too with like other communities as well. But anyways, but yeah, so in here, I don't want to end it on that though, because that's kind of like, ugh, she's kind of drag. But yeah, no. So overall, though, the community, has its bad things, but in my opinion, it was overruled or kind of overseen with like all the positive things, and again too, just like overall and everything. I guess you could say like, yeah. So and again, so what I could consider myself, what I consider myself as a Brony still is like yes and no. Basically, like yes, I can say for sure. It's like yeah, I was a Brony. Yes, I was into minor pony, and to be honest, I still am, but only with Generation 4. So when I say that I am a current Brony and everything, then I'll say no, like because I'm not into Generation 5 or like all that stuff and everything. But yeah, and I guess hearing what I guess if someone were to ask me like really, you were a Brony, why were you into this stuff, this and that? Well, I've already said what I said, how it was like the characters, the show itself what was good, and everything, and like I could get past the whole point situation, right, or everything, but I guess like concerns, and again, I didn't really have this experience personally with myself. Like I said, I wasn't bullied or anything. But I would see other people who would get bullied or, by it, or, be called names and all that stuff, right? Stupid or gay and all that stuff. Like for those people, I do feel for them, and yeah, that is wrong, and I don't like that one bit either. I mean, hey, if someone likes something and you don't agree with it, that's fine, but you don't have to, shame them or like put them down and everything. Granted, I will say though, depending on what it is too, it's like, okay, if it's harmful for them, or if it's really bad, then yes, point it out, please. Point out the mistakes, point out the bad, and be like, no, that is not good. But if it really isn't causing harm, if it's just like a hobby, interest in them, then it's just like leave them alone. It really is. But if someone were to came to me and say, well, did you get bullied? I'd be like, well, no. And of course they asked me why I like it, then I was like, well, because of this, and that. So like. And yeah, I know people are going to have their opinions and say, oh, wow, he's into this. But like I said, too, in this video, I'm pretty much just like explaining myself and sharing, how I was a Brony. And yeah, I can still go back and watch that show, again. And how, yeah, it was a good show. I will say that, And yeah, I did like all that stuff, and everything. But yeah, so that's just my personal, thoughts about it and everything. And now, let's see. If I had to think back then, right, or not back then, but let's say it's in the future. Let's say I'm like 50, right? So, like 20 years later or so forth. Would I still say I was a Brony? Yeah, I'll still say it. I'll say it loud and proud, but like, oh yeah, I was a Brony. Yeah, I was a My Little Pony there and so forth. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm still in the high and everything. But I will say that if anything, that was it was an experience, And I did enjoy myself. I did enjoy, the community and what it shared, and it was a moment in my life to where I have fun, And I think I think that's what it is. I have fun, And like I said too, I wasn't, ashamed or scared to express that too, because I wore the shirts, in public, and everything, even at my church too, and so forth. But yeah, so just my personal thoughts and feelings, I guess, on this, and I just wanted to share something like in my life that I went through for like 9 years, 10 years, or so on and so forth. It was an eventful, decade of my life. How about that? And I just feel like sharing and everything. But yeah, if you made it this far, I do thank you very much for listening. And yeah, if you're growing too, hey, shout outs to you. And if you still are, then cool and everything. But until then, I'll see you next time, and until then, have a blessed day, blessed week, and enjoy yourselves.